Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
All right, let's take it from the top again. Places. Action.
Well, let's see. We have on the bags, we have who's on first, what's on second, I don't know is on third.
That's what I want to find out.
I say who's on first, what's on second, I don't know is on third.
Are you the manager?
Yes.
You going to be the coach, too?
Yes.
And you know the fellow's name?
Well, I should.
Well, then who's on first?
Yes.
I mean the fellow's name.
Who?
The guy on first.
Who?
The first baseman.
Who?
The guy playing
Who
first.
is on first?
I'm asking you who's on first.
That's the man's name.
That's whose name?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
That's it.
That's who?
Yes.
Join us for another voyage back in time on Classic Radio Rewind. From adventures to westerns, from comedy to sci-fi, this is your ticket to Theater of the Mind. Without any further ado, here's your host for Classic Radio Rewind, Barry Slinker.
Happy New Year's, Dex Row, and Happy New Year's, everyone. Hope everyone had a great holiday season and a fun and safe New Year's. I'm Barry Slinker, and I welcome you to our first Classic Radio Rewind of 2025. Later, we'll hear from Mr. Chameleon from 1948, followed by an episode from Murder at Midnight from 1946, and lastly, an episode from the Screen Guild Theater from 1947. But kicking off 2025 is an episode from I Was a Communist for the FBI. A prominent congressman's wife faces blackmail from within the Communist Party. From 1952, starring Dana Andrews, this is I Was a Communist for the FBI with The Sleeper.
I was a communist for the FBI.
Starring Dana Andrews and an exciting tale of danger and espionage. I Was a Communist for the FBI. From the actual records and authentic experiences of Matt Cvetic come many of the incidents in this unusual story. Here is our star, Dana Andrews, as Matt Cvetic, who for 9 fantastic years lived as a communist for the FBI.
For 9 years, I disowned myself. I tried to forget what I'd been and what I stood for. I wasn't my own man, but two men, facing in opposite directions, but joined by arteries and nerves. I was a living contradiction for two masters, against two masters. Traitor, patriot, communist, FBI. An angel sat on one shoulder and Satan on the other for 9 long, fantastic years when I was a communist for the FBI.
In a moment, listen to Dana Andrews as Matt Cvetic, Undercover Man. Here is Dana Andrews as Matt Cvetic, Undercover Man. This story from the confidential file is marked The Sleeper.
First, I think it's a conventional trick to put me on edge and at a disadvantage for whatever's going to happen. Then I realize that Comrade Revson is really worried, deeply puzzled. He stands looking out the window, holding that official-looking paper in his hand. He's worried about it, but I see he's also memorizing it. Then he turns to me and discovers me slowly, as though I hadn't been there when the letter was handed to him by a drop messenger.
Cvetic.
Comrade Revson?
I have an assignment for you. From the highest source.
The Kremlin in person?
Cvetic, you know Shepard Riker, of course.
That loud communist baiter?
Shepard Riker is an extremely dangerous man. His work in Washington is strategic, and his personal campaign against the party is embarrassing.
It's time we did something about him, too.
We are about to do something now. Mrs. Riker lives in this city. A charming woman, reportedly.
What's she got to do with it?
She is one of us.
Mrs. Shepard Riker a communist?
I said so.
She can't be. It just isn't in the books.
But it is. She joined the party 10 years ago. Most attractive, very young. Too attractive for the ordinary work of the party. We assigned her to return to her usual life, to forget she was a member of the party, until we should call upon her for special duty. These orders are it.
We're calling her back to active service?
You will make an appointment with Mrs. Riker.
Serve the greetings on her, eh?
And acquaint her with her assignment. She is to use her influence with her husband to make him cease entirely his attacks on the Communist Party.
Suppose she'd rather forget she was a communist entirely.
Remind her.
But suppose she says no to Proposition Shepard Riker.
We will entertain no alternatives.
And that's all I have to do. Get Mrs. Riker to make her husband lay off the party.
Correct.
Any suggestions?
Only one. Succeed.
I've been a communist for the FBI for quite a while, but this is a new one on me, and I'm always uneasy about these or-else assignments of Revson's. I phone my FBI contact, and we arrange to meet on a park bench near the lagoon. I tell him about my new assignment. For a minute, he doesn't say anything. I feel a chill colder than the bluish November twilight. Then I see him getting ready to talk.
Matt, you may be in for a bad time with Mrs. Riker.
Well, that's how I figure it, but Revson is blithe about it.
Mrs. Shepard Riker represents one of the less-known devices of the party. She's what the red tacticians call a sleeper. Sleepers in the party are supposed to make themselves scarce with the party, go into normal life, act as if they'd never joined the party.
Get lost.
In short.
But they're still in the party.
Oh, indeed they are. And subject to call when the party has just the right assignment for them. Charmian Riker's number happens to be up. You have a tough assignment, Matt. Tough moral problem involved.
How?
Well, look. If you succeed, you'll have brought Charmian Riker back into active party duty, and you'll have knocked a strong anti-communist out of action for the Reds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't envy you. There might be some unpleasant realities for you both to face when the sleeper wakes.
Is this Mrs. Shepard Riker?
This is Mrs. Riker.
May I speak to Mr. Riker, please? This is Mr. Matthews.
I'm sorry, Mr. Riker's in Washington. I can tell you where he may be reached if it's urgent.
It's very urgent, but I'd like to discuss it with you first.
Why? What is it?
I can't talk over the phone.
Well, I don't... What did you say your name was?
I said it was Matthews.
Does that mean it isn't Matthews, perhaps?
Perhaps.
Sounds rather mysterious and conspiratorial, and I don't have much taste for conspiracy, Mr. Matthews.
Then your tastes have changed in the past 10 years.
Just what do you mean by that?
I mean you ought to make a sincere effort to hear what I've got to say. I suggest dinner at any place you suggest.
Could you make it earlier than dinner?
Better yet.
5 o'clock. At my apartment?
Just as you say.
Make it 4:30, would you? It gets so dark so early these days.
I understand, Mrs. Riker. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Even over the telephone, something unusual comes through. A peculiar plaintive quality, dignified by an inflection that seems outdated. A lady, quote unquote, straight out of one of the better Lavender novels of 50 years ago. The voice of a highly sensitive woman, of a Puritan. But beneath the Puritanism, something that might be warmly demonstrative. I take the self-serve elevator to the 9th floor, press the doorbell in the plushy corridor.
Mr. Matthews?
Am I too early?
No. Or rather, yes, but that's good. Come in. Do sit down, Mr. Matthews.
Thank you.
May I get you some refreshment?
If you don't mind, Mrs. Riker, I came early to leave early. I'd like to come to the point right away.
Yes.
My business is only indirectly with your husband.
What is it, please?
Well, your husband is a powerful man in Washington, and still going up. He's pretty outspoken in his criticism of the Communist Party.
He feels very strongly about it.
We want him to cut it out.
Let me understand you.
We want your husband to stop attacking the party.
Who precisely wants him to stop?
We do. You and I.
Who are you?
Comrade Matthew Savetic. Comrade Charmian.
Go back to your superiors. Tell them that 10 years ago I was an impressionable girl. I joined the party blindly. Tell them I'm 10 years older now, without any girlish illusions about the revolution and the dictatorship of the proletariat. Tell them that I'm married and that I love my husband. I will not change him from his attacks on the communists in America.
I can't tell them that.
It's what I'm telling you. Do as you please with it.
You love your husband. Just how do you think it will affect his anti-communism and his career if it becomes public that you are a communist?
I'm not.
You joined the party 10 years ago, and we can prove it.
I left it 8 years ago. I may be on the party rolls, all right. But all my acts and all my instincts are against them now.
Your husband might not make such a fine distinction. He hasn't up till now.
You're saying that if I don't betray him, you'll force him to expose me?
Very much afraid so, comrade.
Blackmail.
I'm afraid so. Now, what shall I tell my superiors?
Tell them... Say...
Mrs. Riker. Please, Mrs. Riker.
Tell them... Ask them to let me think about it. Can you?
I don't have to ask them. Think about it. I'll call you. I see Charmian Riker twice in the next few days. No decision. But I don't push. First, you can't push people like her without breaking something. And second, I'm a little fascinated by Charmian. The more I like her, the less I like my job. And pretty soon, I hate my job. Revson is getting impatient, afraid that Moscow will start pushing him for a decision from Charmian. I have dinner with her again in a off-the-trail place. Her idea again. I hate it. The job sickens and shames me and tortures a woman I like and respect. I know you're getting pretty tired of me by now.
Anybody else wouldn't have been as kind, I'm sure.
Kind. You're the tolerant one.
I don't have a choice, do I?
I suppose not. But I'd like to remain kind, but my chief is pressing for a decision from you.
I can't.
Sooner or later, it'll be the same. You can't win. Call it crocodile tears. Say we'll sacrifice anybody for our ends. I guess we will. But I'm sorry, Mrs. Riker.
Don't call me that in public. Somebody should recognize the name and notice us together.
You dine openly with other men and to your husband's knowledge. No harm done, I'm sure.
Openly, yes. This isn't open. It's so clandestine, so secret. I feel I'm dishonoring Shep already.
I can't call you Comrade Charmian in public.
No.
Just Charmian?
I suppose so.
Charmian. Nice name.
Matt, look over there, carefully.
The corner?
Careful. Yes, that man watching us. Do you know him?
No. No, I don't know him.
He's coming over to us.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Excuse me. My name is Revson.
Well?
You are Matthew Svetic?
I am.
It is important I speak to you privately.
Oh, will you excuse me, Charmian?
Of course.
For the remainder of the evening, Mr. Svetic.
Now back to Dana Andrews, starring as Matt Savetic in I Was a Communist for the FBI, and the second act of our story.
I put Charmian into a cab, feeling like a nerveless adolescent being whipped home by a stern parent. Worse, I sensed the panic in Charmian of being discovered and exposed. Revson walked silently beside me, steering me into the park, swept empty by the raw November night.
Now then, Svetig, tell me about this excessively handsome woman.
You know all I've reported.
Nothing new tonight?
No.
Why not?
You don't use bulldozing tactics on people as sensitive as Charmian.
Charmian. How friendly.
Now listen, Revson.
Comrade Svetig, do not force me to speculate which side you are really on. Keep us secure and safe in the knowledge that you are a trustworthy party member.
I'm prepared to stand on my record, Comrade Revson.
Your record is good, but it does not include such majestic beauties as Charmian.
Nevertheless...
Then give me results.
I'm making progress.
Results, Svetig, not reports of progress. I want the woman's decision by Wednesday.
One way or the other?
Either way. If she demurs, we blackmail her. We compel her anti-communist husband to explain his communist wife. With such cards, it is impossible to lose, Svetig. See that you do not. Good night.
Hello?
Mr. Svetic? Is Mr. Svetic there yet?
Well, Charmian.
Oh, I've been trying all day to reach you. They keep on saying it's a drugstore.
Well, I use the pay station here for one of my offices, yes.
I've got to see you.
Tonight, make it?
Now, can you come to the apartment?
I thought you preferred not seeing me there.
Please.
Coming right over.
Did anybody see you come in, Matt?
I waited for the doorman to go off to whistle up a taxi. It's raining again.
Not that it matters anymore. Secrecy.
Why?
My husband came home unexpectedly this afternoon. I knew something was wrong the moment he came in.
I thought he wasn't due back from Washington for another week.
No. But you and I have been seen together. We're being watched. Shep showed me a letter, unsigned.
Naturally.
He repeated telephone calls he's been getting about us.
Also anonymous, of course.
It could be anybody. And saying such dreadful things.
And he believes them?
We had a horrible scene. I knew it would happen. I knew it.
Did you tell him anything about us?
Nothing. That's what's so impossible about it. I can't tell him anything. Shall I tell him you and I are working to betray him?
I'm sorry, Charmian, but there's nothing I can do.
You're sorry.
There's nothing to be done.
You can do something. You've got to do something. You've got to talk to him.
It's useless.
We'll see. Now, go to that phone.
You can force me to the telephone with that gun, Charmian, but you can't make the right words come when there aren't any.
Call Shep. Dial Canby 2211. Tell him to meet you here.
I'll tell him I'm one of his hated Reds, and that I've been talking to you to get you to make him stop red baiting. That sound good?
Yes. When he hears that a week of persuasion and threats haven't moved me, he'll have to believe in me.
And then I explained that you were the party's logical instrument because you're his wife and a communist, vulnerable to threats. Shall I call?
No.
You see? Want me to take care of that gun?
No. Don't worry.
But I do worry. And not for myself.
My suicide wouldn't help Shep either. There's no way out.
Does that mean you're ready to cooperate?
You were to see me tonight. Let me think about it until then.
Deadline at 8?
8 o'clock. I'll give you my answer.
At 7:45, I'm walking toward Charmian's apartment. A car pulls to the curb and signals me discreetly. The FBI. I get into the car and we bolt away from there and then settle down to a good conversational speed. And I get a jolt that sets my brain whirling.
Matt, I've checked through all the available facts about the people concerned in this case.
Well, have fun. I'm not.
This is something that might shake you.
I'm used to it.
Shepard Riker, our important Washington figure and vigorous, hard-hitting anti-communist, is a communist.
Hmm? Oh, no.
Watch it, will you? I'm driving.
Shepard Riker, a Red?
A very active and loyal one. Riker's party efforts are reaching an advanced stage where his wife will have to know his true color and help in his communist activities. Now do you get it?
Now, yeah. The party wants to see how loyal Charmian is to them.
You've got it.
They figure if she'd betray her husband, who she thinks is an anti-communist, she'd be a safe bet for full party responsibility.
It's another test, Matt, a big important one.
She can't win. If she disobeys her present orders, she'll be tagged unreliable. Riker will drop her cold.
Or she'll play along with the party and find out her idol is a communist.
She can't win.
That's rough. Well, there's your target for tonight, Matt.
Charmian.
Hmm?
It's an odd name, till you get used to it. Then you like it.
Good luck, Matt.
Hello?
Oh,
If a man answers, come in anyhow.
Yeah.
Darling, you have a caller. Dear? I don't believe I've met the gentleman, darling.
Mr. Svetic, my husband.
I won't say how do you do, since by all appearances and intelligences, you've been doing very well.
Stop it, Shep. You've said enough. Matt will tell you that I haven't been deceiving you.
Matt will. Now, who is Matt? This is Mr. Svetic, isn't it?
A man can lose a lot of good wives that way, Riker.
What way, Svetic? We may be thinking of different ways.
Look, Riker, give up. You're making a second-class heel out of yourself in front of a wife who's up to her ears in love with you. Heaven knows why. Why don't you let bad enough alone before you cut yourself down to a first-class heel?
Watch it, mister. I've got a 20-pound edge on you.
Watch it yourself, mister. You may have 20 pounds on me, but a lot of that poundage is blood pressure. You're getting red in the face, son. And it's bad when it shows on you, especially in Washington, D.C. The instant I say it, I know that my anger and my feeling for Charmian and my subconscious has played a nasty trick on me. I'm not supposed to know Riker's a Red, but I've said something like it, even as a sort of angry gag.
How did you know, Svetic?
I'm in an awful spot. How did I know Shep is a Red? The FBI. I can't match that fishy stare of his. My eyes glance over toward Charmian.
Maybe I understand. Charmian? How did you know?
I don't know what you mean, Shep.
Don't lie to me.
Shep, be careful what you
Answer
say.
me!
Oh!
For you stupid rotten...
No, Matt! This is between Shep and me.
And you tell me. How did you know I was in the party?
I'm in the party, too, darling.
I've always known that, you fool.
He wouldn't have married you otherwise.
How did you know I've been a communist? Why did you tell him? Answer me! What kind of a party member is it who gives away top party secrets to casuals like this Svetic here?
She didn't tell me anything. I knew. Okay?
You knew. Don't tell me my dear wife has been carrying on behind my back with the FBI.
He's a communist, too.
You?
Savitic's the name, comrade.
I thought only the top echelons in Moscow knew I'm a communist.
Think again. And in particular, think twice before you slug a woman, comrade. It gives the party a black eye. And it gives your wife a bleeding mouth. Here, take my handkerchief, Mrs. Riker.
Get out, Svetic.
Charmian?
You'd better go.
This is between my wife and me. We'll talk further at headquarters, comrade.
Okay.
Now get out.
I have to leave if they both tell me to, but I'm in serious trouble. I had to admit to Riker that I'm a communist to get Charmian off the hook. But when he checks at headquarters and finds out that even Big Shot Revson didn't know he was a comrade, he'll wonder how I knew. And I'm in hot water, but hot. I get into the self-serve elevator. I hear a door slam far away. I sink another story before I realize it was a shot. I press the up button for 9, and then the elevator goes crazy with people on all floors trying to commandeer it. I finally have to settle for the 6th floor and run up the steps to 9. I edge through the crowd at the open door of 902 Riker. Shep is on the floor, and he's dead. Charmian is standing quietly talking to an officer who must have come up the freight elevator. Her mouth is bleeding again, and she has new bruises, and her magnificent hair is tumbled and her gown torn. She sees me pushing forward and stops me with those beautiful, eloquent eyes, shakes her head slightly for me to keep out of it. She's right. There's nothing I can do. On the street, I slowly realize I'm in the clear. Shepard Riker will never find out from headquarters that nobody, let alone Savetic, knew Riker was a top communist. Shep pushed his luck and Charmian's love too far. Charmian, call it a break for her. An obvious case of self-defense. A couple of years, and she ought to be a free woman. Free of the party, too. Out of bondage forever. Charmian Riker, communist sleeper, will wake up one day free. Me? Maybe I'll see her then. Maybe we'll all be free then. Right now, it's no dice. I'm a communist for the FBI. I walk alone.
Dana Andrews will return in just a moment.
This is Dana Andrews stepping out of the character of Matt Savetic to tell you that the story you've just heard is far from fiction. Names of characters have been changed and certain incidents disguised to protect innocent people. But what you've just heard is much of the real truth and all of the spirit of what happened. Next week, another adventure of Matt Savetic, who worked undercover for the FBI. You won't forgive yourself when others tell you what you've missed, so don't miss it. Thanks.
That was I Was a Communist for the FBI with The Sleeper, as originally heard in 1952. Coming up next on Classic Radio Rewind, we have an episode from Mr. Chameleon starring Carl Swinson. Two lonely sisters live together. One believes she hears her dead son calling out to her in the night. When her sister is stabbed to death, Mr. Chameleon investigates the murder and the mysterious voices. From October 20th, 1948, this is Mr. Chameleon with The Case of the Voices from the Dead.
Next, Mr. Chameleon, the man of many faces. Tonight we again present the famous Mr. Chameleon of Central Headquarters in his most famous cases of crime and murder. Brought to you by the makers of Bayer Aspirin. As all of you know, Mr. Chameleon is known in the police as Chameleon, the man of many faces, who appears in various disguises to track down his prey. The audience always knows who Mr. Chameleon is, but the criminal he is tracking down seldom does. Tonight we give you Mr. Chameleon and the case of the voices from the dead. It is late at night, and silence has fallen over the charming old house where Rose Martinson and her widowed sister, Susan Black, lead a lonely existence. And in the midnight quiet of Susan Black's bedroom, the sisters are sleeping in adjoining beds. Susan is tossing restlessly, and suddenly she sits upright, staring into the darkness.
Did somebody call? I thought I heard a voice.
Mother, it's me, Roddy.
Oh, Roddy. Roddy, I knew you'd come to me. What do you want, darling? What can I do?
Mother, if you love me,
Susan. Susan, what's the matter? It's Roddy. Oh, I know you won't believe me, Rose, but he's here, in this room.
Are you out of your mind? Roddy was killed nearly 2 years ago with John, your husband. The dead don't come back to life.
Oh, they do, Rose. They do come back.
They do come back.
Rose, did you hear that? Didn't you hear my Roddy's voice?
Oh, Susan, it breaks my heart to see you like this. Ever since that fake who pretended to be a spiritualist got his hands on you...
Don't say that. He's not a fake.
I'm going to prove that he's a fake. Here, tonight.
Don't listen to her, Mother, or I'll have to leave you and never come back.
Oh, no, Roddy, no. Rose, you're driving him away. I won't let you drive the spirit of my child away.
I'm going to turn on that light, Susan, and see who's here. See what unspeakable deception this is. And then I intend to send for the police.
Oh, Rose, please, please, I beg of you, don't.
Where's that light switch? Susan, help me.
What's the matter, Rose? I'll put on the light. Oh, she's been stabbed with a paper knife. Oh, Rose! Who killed Rose?
Less than an hour later, in the same room, stands the famous detective, Mr. Chameleon, the man of many faces, the underworld's most feared man. He has just finished examining the body of Rose Martinson, and her sister, Susan Black, overcome with grief and horror, is saying to him half hysterically,
Oh, Mr. Chameleon, this dreadful thing, how could it have happened? I feel as if I'm going mad.
Mrs. Black, your sister Rose was found in this room, stabbed to death with a paper knife. You were the only person in the room with her, and you admit the paper knife is yours.
Yes, but if I killed Rose, I didn't know I was doing it. I may have done it in a dream, in a nightmare.
That might be very difficult to prove, Mrs. Black.
Mr. Chameleon, you must help me.
I intend to, if you're innocent. But my job is to find the murderer, whoever it is.
And if I'm guilty, if I killed my own sister, I want to be convicted.
Tell me something. Did you and your sister live alone in this house except for Tompkins, your butler?
Yes, we lived here alone. That is, after my husband and my son, Roddy.
They were killed in an automobile accident?
Yes, 2 years ago. But as I told you, Roddy has come back to me lately. Back from the dead. I heard his voice right here in this room.
Did your sister hear it too?
Oh, if she did, she wouldn't have told me, Mr. Chameleon. Rose didn't usually sleep in this room with me. But she was worried about me. And that's why she was here tonight.
She had reason to be worried. What is the name of the man that you've been consulting?
What?
This man who makes you think that you're hearing your son's voice. What's his name?
I can't remember. I only went there once. I can't remember his name.
Say, Mr. Chameleon.
Yes, Dave, come in. Mrs. Black, this is Detective Sergeant Arnold.
How are you?
What's on your mind, Dave?
It's Tompkins, the butler here. He's got something pretty interesting to tell you.
Good, good. What is it, Tompkins?
It's about tonight, sir, before the murder. About 10 o'clock, the doorbell rang, and a very odd-looking woman practically pushed her way in. And there was a man with her, too, but He waited outside, and this woman ordered me to go upstairs and tell Mrs. Black she was here.
What was the strange woman's name?
She didn't give any name, Mr. Chameleon. She simply said to tell Mrs. Black that Madam was here. Only I met Miss Rose on the upper landing, and she told me to put the woman out of the house.
Did you, Tompkins?
That was the strange part, sir. When I reached the lower hall, the front door stood open, and the woman and the man were both gone.
I see. Mrs. Black, do you know who the woman was?
It must have been Madame Lola. She tells fortunes with cards. I was only there once.
And you remember her name? Well, she must have made quite an impression. Are you sure, Mrs. Black, that you can't remember the name of that man who says that he's a spiritualist?
No. No, I can't remember.
I take it you're pretty well convinced, Chameleon, that Mrs. Black is lying.
Why, of course she's lying, Commissioner. She's protecting that man, whoever he is. Now, she's one of those highly nervous women. It's quite possible that she killed her sister Rose in a fit of madness. But I'm not entirely convinced. I think there's something horrible behind it all.
What about this fortune teller, Madame Lola, and the man who was with her? Could they have hidden themselves in the house?
Oh, yes, very easily. Huge old place. While Tompkins, the butler, was upstairs, they might have gotten in.
It certainly is a weird case.
It is that, Commissioner. Two sisters, perfectly respectable women, alone in their bedroom. One thinks she hears the voice of a dead child, and a moment later, the other sister stabbed to death in the dark.
And so far, no clue to the murderer and no apparent motive.
No.
Oh, come in.
Did you want to see me, Commissioner?
Oh, yes, come in, Madeline. Mr. Chameleon wants you to work with him on the Rose Martinson murder case.
Good.
Madeline, you'll have to move out of your very comfortable apartment and into the Crown Hotel.
Yes?
And make yourself inconspicuous. No one must suspect you of being a detective.
But, Mr. Chameleon, why the Crown Hotel?
Mrs. Susan Black, the murdered woman's sister, is moving there. She's out on heavy bail, and she's closing her house, though she's keeping Tompkins as a chauffeur. I want you to watch her. Discreetly, Madeline.
I see. Is that all?
No. I want you to do something else, too. I want you to go and question a fortune teller named Madame Lola. Now, my guess is that she's a front for this pseudo-spiritualist whom Mrs. Black has been consulting. Madame Lola looks the victims over and then passes them along to him. She and her kind are the vultures of the world.
When do you want me to go to this Madame Lola's, Mr. Chameleon?
This afternoon. Oh, and Madeline, while you're there, you may meet an old gentleman, Henry Lowry by name, wealthy, the soul of gallantry, and well over 60 years old.
You, Mr. Chameleon, in disguise?
That's right, Madeline. I shall be disguised as Mr. Lowry. Poor, nervous old soul. He was made to order for Madame Lola and her pals.
I consider it an outrage, the police questioning me, Madame Lola. I'm a hard-working woman trying to make an honest living by telling fortunes. I have a client waiting for me right this minute.
He can wait.
No, he can't. It's Henry Lowry of Lowry Industries.
I'll apologize to him on my way out. Good day, Madame Lola, and you'll probably hear from us again.
I don't doubt it.
Mr. Lowry, will you go in, please? Madame Lola is ready for you.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you very much.
She's a tough customer, Mr. Chameleon. I couldn't get a thing out of her.
All right, Madeline. I'll see what I can do. As old Mr. Lowry.
Mr. Lowry.
Yes, Madame Lola?
What was that young woman saying to you?
Why, nothing. Fascinating place you have here, Madame Lola. All those stars in the ceiling and this dim lighting. How different from the outer world. I feel that I'm about to be in communion with the unknown.
Mr. Lowry, I'm highly honored that you should come to me. How did you hear about me?
Well, you're more famous than you think, Madame Lola. I've been to all of them. Palmists, crystal gazers, but they haven't brought me in contact yet.
In contact?
With my little grandson, who was dead, and who was so dear to me.
Perhaps, Mr. Lowry, you're asking too much of fortune tellers to put you in contact with the spirit world.
Do you mean I should see a spiritualist, Madame Lola?
Suppose I read the cards. They may tell us the proper step for you to take.
Would you do that for me, madam?
Here now, let us see what the cards can tell us. I always take them off the top of the packet.
The ace of spades.
Yes, the ace of spades.
Well, that card means death, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I'm going to shuffle the cards again.
Madame Lola, I am not the least bit afraid of death.
Well, I am, Mr. Lowry. But, let us try again.
The ace of spades.
Oh.
Ace of spades the second time, Madame Lola.
Something is wrong somewhere. Mr. Lowry, I don't know whether it means your death or that someone is calling to you from the dead. The vibrations, they're confused. I can't continue. You'll have to excuse me.
But, Madame Lola, perhaps I ought to consult a spiritualist. Can you tell me the name?
No. I am sorry. There's no one I care to recommend.
My dear young lady,
What?
how nice to see you here at the Crown Hotel.
Oh, Mr. Chameleon, it's you.
No, my name is now Henry Lowry. I just moved into the Crown Hotel this afternoon.
Mr. Chameleon.
I got nowhere with that fortune teller, Madame Lola. She's badly frightened. Either she knows who I am, has penetrated my disguise, or else she couldn't make up her mind whether to give me the name of that fake spiritualist.
What's she afraid of?
The mysterious Mr. X, whom Mrs. Black was consulting before her sister Rose was murdered. But Oh, here she comes. So let's see if there's a way to make her remember that name.
Mrs. Black?
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Black, whose sister Rose, believe it or not, Henry Lowry was once very much in love with.
But, Mr. Lowry, I'm sure I never heard my sister mention you.
Mrs. Black, I worshipped Rose from the distance. I danced with her at one of the debutante cotillions when she was 20 and I was 40.
Ah, yes. Those days of joy are gone forever from my life.
Well, you have had your sorrows, my dear. Your sister's death was a horrible shock.
Yes, horrible.
Well, I shan't speak of it. Mrs. Black, won't you have dinner with me? Give me so much pleasure.
I'd be delighted. Mr. Lowry, I feel as if I'd known you always, and yet this is only the second time we've dined together.
I feel the same way, Susan. I hope I haven't bored you with all my talk about my little dead grandson.
Oh, no. Your Jamie was just the age of my son, Roddy.
If only I could get in touch with my grandson in the spirit world. I'd give anything I have to hear his voice again.
Yes, to hear his voice again.
My dear Susan, we both know what sorrow is, how deep the yearning to commune with one that death has taken from us.
Mr. Lowry, I'm going to tell you something that I wouldn't even tell the police. Not even the great detective, Mr. Chameleon.
Really?
I wouldn't tell him because I wouldn't have them persecuting a saint.
A saint?
Yes. He brought my son Roddy back to me, back from the dead. And I know that he can put you in touch with your grandson. He's a very great man, Mr. Lowry. I'll give you his address. His name is Professor Astral.
Mr. Chameleon and the case of the voices from the dead continues in just a moment. Next time you want relief from an ordinary headache, neuritic, or neuralgic pain, remember that one thing you can take with complete confidence is genuine Bayer aspirin. You can take it confidently, of amazingly fast relief, for Bayer aspirin is actually ready to go to work in 2 seconds. And you can take it confident of really dependable relief, for no other pain reliever can match its record of use by millions of normal people without ill effect. Don't ever forget this unmatched record. It's important, because it means you can take Bayer aspirin sure in the knowledge that it will bring you the gentle relief that's important to your health. So don't experiment with drugs that have not been proved by years of successful use. For the 2 most important kinds of relief, fast relief and dependable relief, do as millions do. Be sure with Bayer aspirin. When you buy, ask for it by its full name, Bayer aspirin, not just for aspirin alone. Get the 100-tablet bottle and you get Bayer aspirin tablets for less than a penny apiece. And now back to Mr. Chameleon and the case of the voices from the dead. It is the following afternoon when we find Mr. Chameleon disguised as old Mr. Lowry, the wealthy believer in the spirit world, with his partner, Detective Sergeant Dave Arnold, on his way to see the mysterious Professor Astro.
So you finally got the name of this phony spiritualist out of Susan Black, eh, Mr. Chameleon?
Yes, Dave. His name is Professor Astro.
The guy who brings voices back from the dead.
And disguised as old Mr. Lowry, I'm going to have a seance with him in just a couple of minutes.
Well, isn't that kind of dangerous for you, Mr. Chameleon? Looks like a long chance.
It is dangerous. It is a long chance. If they know that I'm not Lowry, but Chameleon, the cop. This man, Astral, Dave, is connected in some way with the murder of Susan Black's sister. You'd better leave me. From here on, I am old Mr. Lowry.
Yes?
I am Henry Lowry. I'm here to see Professor Astral. Mrs. Susan Black sent me.
Come in. I am Professor Astral.
You are exactly as Mrs. Black described you. Your eyes are hypnotic. She told me you were very particular about who you accepted.
I am Mr. Lowry. I feel my phenomenal powers are too precious to be used indiscriminately. They were bestowed on me by supernatural forces.
I'm sure they were, Professor Astral.
Mrs. Black tells me you had a dearly beloved grandson.
Yes. His name was Jamie. He was 7 years old at the time he was drowned.
The same age as Mrs. Black's son, Roddy.
Jamie was the dearest little boy, always singing and laughing. He used to whistle that tune, I Got Sixpence. Can't hear it now without...
I know, my dear Mr. Lowry. And you want me to put you in touch with your grandson in the spirit world.
If you could, Professor Astral, I would give you anything you asked for.
I want nothing for myself. Mr. Lowry, suppose you come to me at 9 o'clock tonight. I think I'll be able to bring your Jamie back to you. Back from the grave.
Bless you. Bless you. I'm a rich man, Professor Astral, and I assure you
Professor Astral, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Mrs. Black... Mr. Lowry.
Madame Lola, do you two know each other? This is a friend of Mrs. Black.
A friend of Mrs. Black?
Very dear friend. But, Professor Astral, do you know that Madame Lola wouldn't tell my fortune? She kept turning up the ace of spades, the death card.
Mr. Lowry, I reach my greatest power at 9 o'clock at night. So, could you come back then, at 9 tonight? And now Mr. Chameleon, the famous detective, still disguised as old Mr. Lowry, is with Susan Black.
But, Mr. Lowry, why is it so important that I do as you ask?
My dear Susan Black, it's frightfully important, yet I can't explain why.
You've been wonderful for me, Mr. Lowry. You know, it's possible that I killed my sister Rose. I may have had some dreadful nightmare.
Would you like to prove it otherwise?
Oh, yes, yes.
It may be dangerous, but if you find your sister's murderer, if you cleared yourself, wouldn't it be worth it?
Mr. Lowry, how are you concerned in it?
I can't tell you that either. I can only keep on asking you to trust me.
I trust you.
bless you. Now, I have a 9 o'clock appointment with Professor Astral.
So you've come, Mr. Lowry. I was beginning to worry.
Professor Astral, you know I'm so anxious to establish contact with my little dead grandson, Jamie, that
Many people are terrified at their first encounter with the spirit world. It is a terrifying experience.
Professor Astral, I want to contact my dead grandson. If you succeed in doing that for me, I shan't be able to do enough for you.
Mr. Lowry, sit down. I will sit down across from you. Now, please, if you'll be silent, place your hands on this table, your fingertips touching mine.
That's an interesting screen you have over there. Looks like something from India.
Please, Mr. Lowry.
Sorry, Professor Astral.
Is there anyone else in the spirit world you might like to contact first? Anyone who might act as conductor to your dead grandson, Jamie, perhaps your late wife?
No. No, let her rest.
Sit perfectly quiet. Relax. Relax. And let the spirit flow into you as it is flowing into me.
Professor Astral. Professor Astral.
Yes? Who speaks?
It's completely dark. I can't see you at all.
Be silent. Jamie. Jamie. Your grandfather is here. He wishes to speak to you. Give us a sign, Jamie. If you are near, give us a sign.
It's Jamie's tune. It's the tune he always used to whistle. Jamie! Jamie, is that you? Is it really you?
Speak to us. Speak to your grandfather, Jamie.
Jamie, I can't believe it. Speak to me again.
Grandfather, if you want to be truly happy, give everything you can to Professor Astro.
I will. I will indeed. Let me hear your voice again, little Jamie.
Grandfather, if you help Professor Astro...
That's Roddy's voice. That's my son's voice.
What?
I know it's the same voice. I'd recognize it anywhere.
Thank you, Mrs. Black. That's all I wanted to know. Madeline, turn on the lights.
What the devil is this? Oh, Mrs. Black, how did you get in here?
She came with Madeline Evans. Miss Evans is a police detective, Professor Astral.
Stay where you are, Professor Astral. I have you covered.
But this is an outrage. Mrs. Black, why do you stare at me like that?
Because that voice was Roddy's, my son's. There's no mistake about it. And yet you told poor Mr. Lowry that it was his grandson's voice.
But it was. It
couldn't have been, Professor Astral, since I have no grandson. In fact, I am a bachelor. My name isn't even Lowry, it's Chameleon.
Chameleon? You're Mr. Chameleon.
The detective. Here in disguise.
Yes, and I place you under arrest. Keep them covered, Madeline. Dave.
We will, Mr. Chameleon.
But what are you arresting me for? Surely you don't think I murdered Mrs. Black's sister, Rose Martinson?
No. Rose Martinson's murderer is behind the door in that closet. Open that door and come out.
But who is it? Who is it, Mr. Chameleon?
It is the voice of Roddy, Mrs. Black. Roddy and Jamie and probably dozens of others. Come out of that closet or I'll shoot.
Don't shoot. Don't shoot. I haven't got a gun.
Tompkins, my butler.
Yes, Mrs. Black. Dependable Tompkins. Your butler and chauffeur, and also the silent partner of Madame Lola and Professor Astral, only not so silent. His specialty, my dear, was imitating the voices of children. He used to be on the vaudeville stage as a ventriloquist.
How did you find that out?
Detective Sergeant Dave Arnold found it out. You alone were in the house with Mrs. Black and her sister the night of the murder. You killed Miss Rose when she threatened to turn on the light. She surprised you. You didn't know she was there in the room.
They're in it, too, Madame Lola and Professor Astro.
Oh, yes. Yes, the three of you had this racket for years. You made a practice of getting jobs with lonely, bereaved women and led them to Madame Lola, who steered them to Professor Astral. But you, and you alone, committed the murder, Tompkins.
Mr. Chameleon, I can't believe that I'm actually free. I mean, free in my mind as well as literally free.
Well, the evidence looked very black against you in the beginning. But, you see that motto on the wall of my desk? The innocent must be protected, the guilty must be punished. And I wish I could tell you how glad I am, Susan, that you were proven innocent.
But Mr. Lowry was such a charming old gentleman. I'm sorry I've lost him.
Well, now, don't forget you've acquired a younger friend in his place, Susan. Chameleon, the cop.
And with these words, Mr. Chameleon concludes tonight's murder case. The way that millions get amazingly fast relief from common headache, neuritic, or neuralgic pain is to take quick-acting Bayer aspirin. Bayer aspirin is one thing that really works, and works quickly. And you can see the reason why with your own eyes. Just drop a Bayer aspirin tablet in a glass of water and clock its disintegrating speed. Within 2 seconds, it will start to disintegrate. And because it does the same in your stomach, because it's ready to go to work almost instantly, relief comes with astonishing speed. In addition, you can take Bayer aspirin with complete confidence, for of all pain relievers, none can match its record of use by millions of normal people without ill effect. So when you buy, be sure to ask for genuine Bayer aspirin. Get the 100-tablet bottle, and you get Bayer aspirin tablets for less than a penny apiece. Listen next Wednesday night at the same time for Mr. Chameleon, the man of many faces, in The Case of Murder from Across the Seas. The part of Mr. Chameleon is played by Carl Swenson, with dialogue by Marie Baumer from the original story by Frank and Ann Hummert. Music directed by Victor Arden. Your announcer is Howard Claney.
Friends, there's a new toothpaste in the market that you'll want to try. It's called Lion's Toothpaste. And it's not just another old toothpaste with an added ingredient, but is completely new and radically different in formula. For this reason, new Lion's Toothpaste does what no other toothpaste can do. Yes, laboratory tests on scores of individual teeth prove that it actually gets teeth brighter, 2.5 to 5.5 times brighter than any of the 5 leading brands, brighter by far than any other toothpaste. So for a brighter smile, try this toothpaste that cleans without soap, polishes without chalk. Lion's Toothpaste.
Listen for Mr. Chameleon in The Case of Murder from Across the Seas next Wednesday night at this time. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
That was Mr. Chameleon with The Case of the Voices from the Dead, as originally heard October 20th, 1948. And we have just wrapped up the first hour of Classic Radio Rewind of 2025. But we have more from the golden age of radio on the other side of the break, as Classic Radio Rewind returns right after these messages. Welcome back to Classic Radio Rewind. I'm Barry Slinker. Kicking off this second hour is an episode from Murder at Midnight starring Eric Dressler. Everyone who drinks from a mysterious goblet becomes a murderer. From May 17th, 1946, this is Death's Goblet.
Murder at midnight.
They'll hang me like a common criminal, and I didn't mean it. You know I didn't.
Oh, stop whining, Gerald. Take your medicine like a man.
What? All right, Harvey. I'll stop. You're responsible for the whole thing. You know you are. And since they can only hang me once, even for 2 murders...
Midnight, the witching hour when the night is darkest, our fears the strongest, and our strength at its lowest ebb. Midnight, when the graves gape open and death strikes. How? You'll learn the answer in just a minute in Death's Goblet. And now, Murder at Midnight. Tales of mystery and terror by radio's masters of the macabre. Our story by Sigmund Miller is Death's Goblet.
It all began at one of Arthur Cunningham's parties. He always gave a party when he came back from one of his trips abroad. I went there with Gerald, my partner, and his wife, Susan. Beautiful Susan. Did I care for her? People used to say so. But she was too self-centered a woman for me. I like to look at her just as I like to look at anything that's lovely. That was all. As for Gerald, well, he was rich, which was the only reason he was my partner. But suppose I start at the beginning, at the moment we got to the party and Arthur came over.
Well, hello, Harvey. Glad you came.
Wonderful to see you back, Arthur. You know Gerald and his lovely wife, Susan.
Of course. Hello, lovely wife, Gerald.
It's nice to see you again, Arthur.
Good trip, Arthur? Marvelous. And you're just in time for a drink. Let's get away from this mob. Come into the study. I've just opened my last bottle of Chateau Albert.
Oh, nice.
Here we are. Oh, someone get the glasses out of the cabinet, will you?
I'll get them.
Large parties make me very nervous, you know. I'm much traveling.
Here we are. Hi. What an odd goblet this one is.
Oh, put that one back, Susan.
Why, what's wrong, Arthur?
Use any of the others, but not that one.
Oh, I'll be careful of it if that's what you're worried about.
Well, it's not that. I just don't want you to drink from it.
What's all the mystery about, Arthur?
Well, you'd all think I was mad if I told you. Take a look at it.
It's a very strange-looking glass.
Yes, looks Venetian, possibly from Murano.
It is.
This red spot here on the side.
Yes, it's supposed to be a drop of blood.
That's very odd. How do you know that?
Well, Gerald, this goblet has a legend, a terrible legend. And, of course, none of you will believe it, but the story is that anyone who drinks from this goblet will kill someone.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you believe it?
Why, yes, Gerald. You see, I've had proof.
Good heavens.
I once drank from this goblet.
What?
Arthur, you're joking. You mean that
Yes,
you...
Susan, it was justifiable homicide, but after I drank from it, I did kill someone. Well, he was a thief and he attacked me, but still I killed him.
Well, you never told us about that.
Well, it's not anything that I care to remember particularly.
Oh, how terrible for you, Arthur. Where did you get the goblet?
From a murderer, a man who killed his wife. They were auctioning off his estate.
Extraordinary. May I look at the glass, Arthur?
Yes, if you like.
Everyone stared at the goblet in silence as I held it to the light. It had a delicate brown tint, reminding me of old blood, except that it sparkled and glittered. The spot of red did look like a drop of blood about to roll down the side. It seemed ridiculous that this inanimate object could make men commit murder, and yet there was something about it that fascinated me, and suddenly I wanted to drink out of it.
You seem very interested in my goblet, Harvey.
Yes, will you pour some wine in it for me?
What? Oh, no, Harvey. This happens to be one superstition I believe. Everyone who has ever put his lips to this goblet has killed. I don't know why it's so, but it is.
Oh, it's silly, of course, but why tempt fate?
Oh, nonsense, Gerald, nonsense. I'm going to drink out of it.
You'll have to pour the wine yourself, Harvey.
All right, I will. Well, here's, health and long life.
No, Harvey, I won't let you.
Oh, why, Susan, you shouldn't have done that. You've spilled some of Arthur's best burgundy and ruined a good tablecloth.
It doesn't matter. I'm glad you did it, Susan.
I won't let you or anyone else drink from that glass.
It's strange to get so distressed about a ridiculous legend.
I don't think murder is ridiculous.
You know, I'd like to get rid of it. I was thinking of destroying it.
Well, why don't you? Just fling it against the fireplace.
No, I can't.
Huh?
I've tried several times, but somehow I couldn't.
Arthur?
Yes?
How about giving it to me?
I'd rather not.
Oh, come on. You want to get rid of it, and I have a fine glass collection. I'd like to add to it. I'll keep it locked up.
You'll be sorry, but if you want it that badly, Harvey, it's yours.
Arthur, please don't give it to him.
Susan, what's the matter with you? You watch over Harvey as if... As if
what, Gerald?
Oh, the whole business is absurd.
Of course it is.
Yes, and if I should drink out of it and commit a murder, that would be the most absurd thing of all. I kept the goblet on the mantelpiece in my library where the lamplight made it glitter. I discovered that the red drop was not paint. It was ingrained in the glass. Oh, very cleverly. One night, both Susan and Gerald were at my home. As we chatted, I got up, went to the mantelpiece, and idly toyed with the goblet.
That goblet? It's the one Arthur gave.
Yes, you remember. He gave it to me.
Why don't you smash it, Harvey? Get rid of it. Ooh, it gives us all the creeps.
Well, Gerald, you aren't really afraid of a piece of glass, are you?
You don't believe Arthur's story at all, do you, Harvey?
On the contrary, Susan, I do believe it. But not the way you think.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean to say murder is not in the goblet. It's in me, in you, even in Gerald.
What a silly thing to say, Harvey.
Oh, yes. You don't need a magic goblet to commit a murder. All you have to do is let yourself go. Let go of the civilized controls that tie you up. Why, Gerald, if you had cause, you could murder me or even your lovely wife.
Oh, I couldn't kill a fly.
Oh, but you could if the fly gave you enough trouble. Now, supposing, just as an example, supposing that you discovered that Susan was really in love with me and only married you for your money.
Harvey.
Wouldn't that make you want to murder her, Gerald?
Oh, you're crazy.
That's not very funny, Harvey.
Even you, Susan.
What?
Even though you have a lovely face and exquisite hands, even you could commit murder. Why, there must have been times when you hated Gerald, or only for a moment, of course. But in that moment, if you were not so civilized...
Stop it, Harvey.
Why, you could even put your lovely hands around my throat.
Oh, stop it, Harvey. You're not that important to her. And then just why are we on this gruesome subject?
That's Harvey's idea of humor.
Susan looked at me, a touch of red at the point where the cheekbones make the skin taut. She seemed angry, but she wasn't really. Oh, yes, she loved me. I could see it in her face. She looked at me for a moment and then dropped her eyes.
May I look at the goblet, Harvey?
No, I'm afraid not, Susan. You might accidentally drop it.
It might be a good idea.
Well, I have an even better one, Gerald. And that's to go home before we get really serious about this murder business.
I sat there staring at the goblet after they left. It fascinated me, glittering in the lamplight. And as I looked at it, it almost seemed as if the red spot of blood was, moving, rolling down its side. Why shouldn't I drink from it? Why? And before I knew it, I'd taken it down and put it on the table. I got a bottle of Burgundy, opened it, and I poured slowly, filling the goblet just up to the red spot. And then I drank from it. It seemed to me that the wine had a different taste, although I had drunk this wine often and knew its taste well. It was delicious. I had another. It was heady, And it made me a little dizzy, although I felt fine and free. Yes, light and dizzy. But after a while, when the dizziness wouldn't go away, I decided to go for a drive, even though it was close to midnight. I drove fast. The speed and power of the car gave me a feeling of great exhilaration. I took the turns at full speed, enjoying the danger of the sharp curves. Then I came to a long, level stretch of road. I pressed down hard on the gas. The needle of the speedometer slowly moved upward. 60, 70, 80, 85. The road, like a black ribbon, rolled up in front of me. And then I suddenly saw him, but it was too late. I struck him with my right fender. He never made a sound. The car swerved a little from the impact. My heart in my throat. I stopped. Then I backed up. Backed up. Backed up. Backed up to where the body was lying sprawled grotesquely on the edge of the road. One look was enough. He was dead. But no one had seen the accident. I stepped on the gas and drove off.
Death's goblet, and a man who drank from it. A corpse lying limp by the side of a lonely road. And a car speeding away as the clock strikes 12 for murder at midnight. And now, back to Murder at Midnight. Harvey challenged the curse of the goblet and found it true. He had just killed a man after drinking from it. Let's listen to him as he continues the story of Death's Goblet.
I knew now that the story of the goblet wasn't a myth, and I also knew what I was going to do about it. The next night, I got Gerald to come to my house to do some work.
I can't make head or tail out of your cost estimates, Harvey.
Well, now, really, Gerald, it's very simple. Just concentrate.
Why can't you take care of it like a good fellow? I'm awfully tired.
Well, all right, let's stop for a couple of minutes. Have a drink?
Oh, what are you doing, Harvey? The goblet.
Why, you don't really believe that story of Arthur's, do you?
Well,
you're much too intelligent for that. Well, you only pretended in front of Susan, didn't you?
Well, I... Oh, yes. Had to pretend, you know, women.
Well, of course. And even if you did believe it, I've a feeling that basically you're pretty reckless, aren't you?
I used to be pretty wild when I was a young fella. On a motorcycle once. And...
Yes, I know, yes. Well, let's drink up. Find me a victim, will you, Gerald?
Huh?
Well, you know, according to the legend, I've got to murder someone. Maybe even you.
Harvey the murderer.
Yes. Very nice wine. How about another?
Right.
Well, here's to your lovely wife. And how about switching glasses?
Huh?
Well, you might as well get a kick out of it, too.
Okay. Here goes.
I watched the fool swagger as he drank down the wine. In an hour, when he was alone, he'd be shivering with fright at what he'd done.
Well, I did it.
You certainly did. By the way, Gerald.
Yes?
I checked Arthur's story about this goblet.
Yeah?
And it seems that he's right. Everyone who ever put his lips to this goblet has committed a murder.
You mean...
Well, of course, it's all coincidence, but then again, who knows? All the next week, I kept reminding Gerald about his drinking from the goblet. I wasn't really trying to get him to kill, but it was amusing to see him get upset and uneasy. And I noticed he was getting a little bolder, particularly with Susan, and had developed a temper. And one night, just as I was about to retire...
Hello, is that you, Harvey?
Yes, Susan, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm just a little worried about Gerald. He usually gets home at about 6, and it's 11 o'clock now. Do you know where he might be?
Why, he's having dinner with his sister.
Sister?
Yes, a tall, dark girl. She was in the office today, and...
Harvey, Gerald has no sisters?
Oh, he hasn't?
No.
Oh, I guess I got him mixed up with someone else. Yes, it was Les Gordon who was meeting his sister. Yes, Gerald had some business to take care of over in Milford.
You're not very good at covering up, Harvey. I'm coming right over. Please wait up for me.
Good. Things were beginning to happen. It was becoming very interesting. Now we'd see.
Harvey, I want you to tell me everything. I must know. Who is this girl?
Take it easy, Susan. Come, sit down, sit down.
Oh, never mind that. What about Gerald?
I don't know anything about Gerald's private life. And besides, you're not the one to talk.
What on earth do you mean?
You know perfectly well what I mean. You don't really care for Gerald. Actually, you're in love with me.
Harvey.
Well, you are, aren't you?
Maybe. Sometimes I think I am. Oh, but you're too cold-blooded. I'd never be sure I could trust you.
As a matter of fact, you'd like to get rid of Gerald.
Why do you say that?
Well, I'm just putting your thoughts into words. You never really loved him, did you?
Oh, but Harvey...
And he's finally become unbearable, hasn't he?
Oh, Harvey, if you only knew.
Do you know that the last time Gerald was here, he drank out of that goblet of Arthur's? It's possible that he wants to get rid of you, too.
Oh, stop it, you hear?
Well, I'm just telling you what I think you ought to know.
Oh, we'll see. I left word at home that Gerald was to meet me here. And if he does come, well, we'll see.
We sat and waited, not talking much. Susan's face was pale and agitated. It was most exciting. Susan, with all her charm and embellishments, was really a fierce animal underneath. I could almost hear her rage seething.
Are you expecting anyone?
Just Gerald.
Well, let him in.
Oh, hello, Harvey. Susan, what's up? Why did you leave word to meet you here?
It's almost midnight. Where have you been all the evening?
At Milford?
With whom?
What's going on, anyway? What are you so excited about, Susan?
What were you doing in Milford?
Why, I went there on business.
Oh, really? You've been behaving very strangely lately, Gerald. If you don't love me, why don't you say so like a man?
What? This is all your fault, Harvey. You've been filling her head with poison.
I had nothing to do with this. I told her that you went to Milford.
All he did was to make me see clearly something I've felt for a long while. And I think this is the time to do something about it.
Sue, are you out of your mind? Put that gun down.
You remember it, don't you? You gave it to me. Said it might be useful in an emergency.
Harvey, take that gun away from her. She's liable to shoot.
She won't shoot. She's only trying to frighten you.
Am I? Let's see.
Oh, my shoulder. Give me that gun. Give it to me. Harvey, she's dead.
Yes, Gerald. And you killed her.
But it was an accident. She shot at me, and I was only trying to get the gun away from her. You know that's what happened.
I only know that you drank from that goblet and that you killed her.
What? But... Oh, you dirty, treacherous... You planned all this so that you could get rid of me, so that you could have Susan, you could have the firm for yourself.
You'll have to do better than that to beat the gallows, Gerald.
The gallows? Please, Harvey, we've been friends for a long time. You can't let me down.
You wouldn't have pressed the trigger if you hadn't had murder in your heart, Gerald. You shot her because you wanted to. That's what I saw. I believe in telling the truth.
Harvey, I'll turn over the business to you. I'll do anything if you'll just...
I don't accept bribes, Gerald.
All right. But I'll fool you. I'll call the police myself.
Well, there's the phone.
I'll prove my case in court. They won't convict me. Operator, give me the police. Hello? Police department? This is Gerald Hamilton. I just accidentally shot my wife. And my friend's home. Yes, she's dead. The address is 411 Grove Street. That's right. I killed her. Accidentally. Yes. I'll be waiting here.
Cigarette, Gerald?
Treating me like a condemned man, huh? Well, I'm not going to die. All I have to do is tell the truth about everything, including you.
Oh, but you forget, Gerald, there must be fingerprints, your fingerprints on that gun. That won't look very accidental, will it?
But Harvey...
You did it, Gerald. I saw you.
You don't back me up, they'll hang me like a common criminal. Please, Harvey, don't let them do that to me, please.
Oh, stop whining, Gerald.
What? All right, Harvey, I'll stop. You're responsible for this whole thing. You know you are. And since they can only hang me once...
You raised the gun, but I'd been expecting it. I grabbed his hand, pushed it against his chest. My finger pressed on his and on the trigger. And suddenly, he went limp.
You won't get away.
My alibi was perfect. All I had to do was wait for the police that he himself had called. The minutes ticked slowly away, and then...
Hello, Harvey.
Arthur.
Glad I found you in. Say, you look as if you'd been in a fight.
Arthur, you'd better not come in.
Why? What's the matter?
No, you'd better not come in.
Oh, but why?
Well, Gerald and Susan, they had a quarrel, and he killed her.
What?
And then he shot himself.
What are you talking about, Harvey?
Well, all right, come in. Look for yourself.
Good Lord.
Tried to kill me, too.
But why? It doesn't sound like him, or like either of them.
Well, I don't know why. Fit of insanity? Or maybe it was the goblet. Your goblet. He drank out of it, you know.
The goblet? Why, that's ridiculous.
As he spoke, he picked up the gun. It made me furious. All those fine fingerprints of Gerald's were now erased. Put that gun down, Arthur. There are fingerprints on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
I tried to get hold of myself. The stupid fool, he was going to ruin everything. But I had to keep calm. What were you saying about the goblet?
Why, it has no curse or magic. I just made that story up.
You made it... You mean...
Of course, I bought the goblet in an antique shop. As a matter of fact, I have a whole set of them.
The pulses hammered away in my head. A vast, uncontrollable anger seized me. Was it because of those precious fingerprints that he'd wiped out, or because I had believed in the goblet myself? I don't know. I only know that I had to fight to keep from grabbing him by the throat.
You know, I don't think you're telling me everything you know about this horrible business, Harvey. In fact...
A red-hot wave came over me. I don't remember exactly what happened.
Let me go! Get your hands off me!
Arthur's body is lying there, too, now. Next to Susan's and Gerald's. But the police will be here any minute, so I have to hurry. First, the goblet. There. That's done. No. Some of the broken fragments still glitter in the lamplight. I've got to crush them, grind them to powder under my heel. But there are always other pieces that I can't find. They're hiding from me. They're afraid of me. But I'll find every piece. I'll find them! I'll find them! I'll find
them! Three bodies lying huddled on the floor, and a madman crushing the fragments of the broken goblet to powder as the police car drives up and the clock strikes 12 for murder at midnight. remember to be with us again when death appears at the door, wearing the face of a friend, and the clocks strike 12 for Murder at Midnight. The part of Harvey was played by Eric Dressler. With music by Charles Paul, Murder at Midnight was directed by Anton M. Leader.
That was Murder at Midnight with Death's Goblet, as originally heard May 17th, 1946. And lastly on Classic Radio Rewind is an episode from the Screen Guild Theater starring Vincent Price, a radio dramatization of the 20th Century Fox film about a simple farm girl who is recruited by a distant relative, an aristocratic patroon, to be governess to his young daughter in his Hudson Valley mansion. From January 20th, 1947, this is the Screen Guild Theater with Dragonwake.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, Lady Esther presents the Screen Guild Players in Dragonwyck, the 20th Century Fox picture based on the book by Anya Seton Chase. It stars Vincent Price as Nicholas, Teresa Wright as Miranda, and Glenn Langan as Dr. Turner. The Lady Esther Screen Guild Players in Dragonwyck.
Even now, and after all these years, sometimes the smallest thing will bring it back. A bit of music, a man's laugh, a bird that's singing in the morning sun, and suddenly I'm there again. Suddenly I'm back at Dragonwyck. It was more than I'd ever dared to dream. A girl like me, Miranda Wells, who'd lived all her life on a little farm. I was going to Dragonwyck. I can still remember when the letter arrived. Cousin Nicholas Van Ryn. Cousin Nicholas, the patroon, who owned thousands of acres along the Hudson in a fine big house. Cousin Nicholas was inviting me to come to stay with his family and be a companion to his little girl. To think I'd never even seen a steamboat. Now I was on one, riding upriver. No wonder I was so excited. No wonder I came along, running along the deck, and Cousin Nicholas, I saw it. Some of the passengers pointed it out. I saw Dragonwyck.
I notice you've taken your bonnet off.
Oh, I was so excited. Cousin Nicholas, how can you sit there so quietly? I should think that seeing Dragonwyck would be more thrilling to you than anyone.
Nothing could be thrilling that is shared with so many other people. Did you like what you saw?
Oh, I'm afraid I've run out of words. I've said beautiful so often.
Every now and then you say golly. I prefer beautiful.
Oh, I'll try to remember. Do you mind if I keep off my bonnet just a minute? The breeze feels so wonderful against my face.
If you wish.
Thank you. Now tell me about Dragonwyck. How many rooms?
I've never counted them.
And a lot of servants?
I've never counted them either.
Golly. I mean, Cousin Nicholas, am I hopeless?
Too bad you have to wear a bonnet. The breeze must feel very wonderful indeed with a face as beautiful as yours against it.
It was very strange the way he said it, and I might have puzzled over it more, but there was all the excitement of arriving at Dragonwyck. The great spacious house, the servants in livery. I was too awed to notice little things. The way I was greeted by Cousin Nicholas's wife.
Welcome to Dragonwyck, child. I hope you'll be happy. Nicholas, did you remember to bring the pastries?
And the first time I found myself with little Katrine.
I don't love my Mama and Papa. They don't love me either.
And yet Cousin Nicholas was so gentle with his wife. So thoughtful and considerate, and so kind to the child. I thought no more about the little things until that night. I remember that Magda, the housekeeper, was getting me settled in my room.
It's a lovely room, Miss Wells. I hope you'll like it.
I'm sure I will. Listen.
The harpsichord? That's Mynheer Van Rijn playing. Sometimes he sits alone and plays for hours.
Sounds so gay and yet sad somehow.
Yes. It was brought here by his great-grandmother, Azield.
Azield? Is that a Dutch name?
Oh, she wasn't Dutch. The old Mynheer brought her in New Orleans. That's her portrait that hangs over the harpsichord.
She was beautiful, wasn't she? And very young.
About your age. And not much older when she died.
She died so young? Why?
They say he never loved her, never wanted her at all. He just wanted their son. And when the child was born, he kept him from her. He forbid her to sing and play. He broke her heart and drove her to...
What?
Well, they say she prayed for disaster to come to the Van Rijns. And she swore that when it came, she would be here to sing and play. She killed herself in that room at the harpsichord.
Oh, that's just kitchen gossip.
Oh, no doubt. Of course, I've never heard Azield play myself. They say in the kitchen that you can never hear it unless you've got Van Rijn blood in you. But the Mynheer will hear it, and Katrine.
That's utter nonsense.
Oh, of course. Miss Wells, why have you come here?
To be Katrine's companion. Why do you ask?
Because one day you'll wish with all your heart that you had never come to Dragonwyck. Good night.
Perhaps that should have made me curious. Perhaps I should have thought more about it. But the life at Dragonwyck was so new and thrilling. And a few days later was the 4th of July. I remember the house was filled with guests. I felt awkward and out of place. And then, as though to tell me I was welcome, Cousin Nicholas unlocked the conservatory and took me in to show me about.
The plants look rather well, I think. I like to have them at their best on the day of the kermesse.
Dr. Nicholas, what exactly is the kermesse?
A very old custom. My tenants present their tribute to me, and then eat, drink, and dance to excess at my expense.
But paying tribute, what's that got to do with the 4th of July?
Nothing. I have made the dates coincide purely as a courtesy to Independence Day. But you haven't yet complimented me on my flowers.
I'm afraid I haven't any words again. They're all so...
Exquisite would be a nice word. This one is a Persian grinalda. It's my prize. Do you like it?
Oh, it's beautiful. So beautiful, it's almost frightening.
My dear child, you mustn't let your...
Cousin Nicholas.
Do you hear that?
Oh, of course. It's the Countess de Grenier. When she saw the harpsichord, she said she couldn't wait to play it.
Oh, yes. I'm sure the delay has been our loss. She plays very beautifully. Miranda, don't forget that at the Kermesse ball, you were to save the first waltz for me.
But I'd feel out of place. I haven't a proper dress.
You will find one in your room. I brought it for you from New York.
But I couldn't. I'm so awkward. Cousin Nicholas, they'll laugh at me.
They'll not laugh, Miranda. They will not laugh if you dance with me.
He was so gentle and so kind with me. I could scarce believe he was the same man that afternoon at the kermesse. It was a strange sight, like something out of another world. Cousin Nicholas sitting on a great carved chair, and the farmers stepping up to pay their tribute. One by one they came as they were called, and I could see their faces were hard and sullen, but each brought his sack of wheat or corn or rye, until the name of Glasblica was called.
Glasblica. Glasblica next.
I'm here, but I brought no tribute.
Take off your hat before the patroon.
I'm a free American citizen. I'll not take off my hat to any man. Nor will you get so much as a grain of wheat from me.
Glasblica, do you mean to farm my lands and make no return for the privileges I allow you?
Your lands? You hear that, man? His lands. Why, the Bleekers have worked the hill farm for 200 years.
And for longer than that, the Van Rijns have owned it.
We've paid the worth many times over, and you know it. Well, here's the finish.
Is that your final decision, Klaas?
Aye.
I'm sorry to hear it. But since you feel that way, I order you to leave my land by tomorrow noon. Now, will the rest of you men come forward, please? I have something to say.
I'm tired of listening and talking and listening. I'm going to do something now.
I saw his knife flash in the sun. I saw a man jump in front of him. I saw the quick, sharp struggle, and when it was over...
Mr. Van Ryn, I have his knife. Klaas will do you no harm.
How fortunate, Dr. Turner, for him.
He just lost his head, that's all. He doesn't want any violence any more than the rest of us.
Dr. Turner, you presume to speak for all of these men? And is that because whatever ideas they may have in their heads, you put them there?
That's nonsense. These men are not alone. The anti-rent movement has swept New York State. Man, take your head out of the sand and help solve this problem peacefully. Because it's got to be solved peacefully or not.
Listen to me. Listen to me, all of you. Just what is it that Dr. Turner wants you to want so passionately? It has an assortment of highly romantic names. The rights of man, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. But do you imagine they will all be yours with the title to a few acres of soil? Believe me, my welfare does not depend upon you. But my rents and tributes and my responsibilities are hereditary. They are symbols of a way of life to which I have been born, and I shall never relinquish them. Now, who is next?
I think I was a little shocked, a little angry. But through the weeks that followed, he was a different man again. So kind and gentle that a blind adoration filled my heart and bolted all I'd seen and heard from my mind. And so it was, until that day in mid-fall. All that day it had been storming fiercely, and late that afternoon, as I was passing the conservatory, I noticed that the door was ajar. I thought perhaps the wind had blown it open, but as I went to close it...
Who is it? Who's there?
Oh, I'm sorry, Cousin Nicholas. I thought...
Oh, it's you, Miranda. I just came in to get this plant. Johanna's cold is worse. She's going to stay in bed. I thought this might make her illness less unbearable.
Why, that's your Grinalda, your favorite. Oh, I'm sure that will make her very happy.
Then my wife will be happy, and I will be happy. We'll all be happy. Now, let's get this door locked.
Emilia Van Ryn.
What is it, Magda?
It's Dr. Turner. He's in the Great Hall. He says it's most urgent.
Turner, I've got nothing to say. Oh, never mind. Miranda, will you take this plant up to Johanna for me?
Of course.
Tell her I've been delayed. I'll be up in a moment. Dr. Turner?
Mr. Van Ryn, I wouldn't intrude like this, but it's most important. Klaas Bleeker's been arrested for murder.
A pity you weren't there to stop him
I
this
was
time.
there. The anti-renters were rioting at Snooky Hollow. But Klaas wasn't anywhere near the boy that was shot. They just pinned it on him.
They? If you mean the patroons, you must also mean me, in which case I fail to comprehend
I want
what...
your assurance he'll have a fair trial.
Dr. Turner, will you stay for dinner?
No, thank you.
I'll have the butler set another place.
I'd rather not if you don't mind.
Dr. Turner, I'm giving you my word. Klaas Bleeker will have a fair and just trial. Now, of course, you'll stay?
Yes, but it's my turn not to understand.
Mrs. Van Ryn has a severe cold, Doctor. I was hoping you'd have a look at her.
Jeff Turner dinner guest at Dragonwick. I just couldn't believe it. Nor could I understand why Cousin Nicholas insisted he'd spend the night. Perhaps it was thinking about that kept me awake. Perhaps it was something else. But toward midnight, I heard a noise on the landing outside my door. And when I went to look...
Oh, I like that. I like it. It's pretty.
Katrine, why aren't you asleep?
I don't want to sleep. It's so beautiful.
What is?
Don't you hear it? Such a pretty song. From down there.
Darling, you've been dreaming.
Oh, no. It's a lady. She's singing and playing the harpsichord.
Katrine.
It's like a lullaby. But it must be funny because sometimes she laughs. There, she's laughing now. Miranda, I don't like it anymore. I'm afraid. Make her stop, Miranda.
Darling, it's no one. Really, it isn't. You've just been imagining. Don't you see? If there was anything, I'd hear it, too.
It stopped now.
Of course it has. It never started, really. Come along now. Back to your room. No more bad dreams.
Good night, Miranda.
Good night, darling.
Miss Miranda. Miss Miranda.
Magda, what is it?
Miss, you better get them in here. Go get the doctor.
Magda, what's happened?
It's Mrs. Van Ryn. I went in to make her comfortable for the night. I went to straighten the pillow and...
What?
She's dead.
The second act of the Lady Esther Screen Guild play will follow in a moment. Now, a word from Lady Esther.
Suppose you could consult the leading skin specialists of this country. Suppose you could ask these important doctors, what's the best thing I can do to my skin to make it lovelier? Their advice could be summed up in 3 little words. Keep it clean. Of course, you'd say, but I do. However, skin specialists know that many very fastidious women never get their skins really clean. And here's why. There's a stubborn film on every woman's skin. It's caused by natural oils mixed with cosmetics and dirt, and ordinary cleansing fails to remove this stubborn film. You think your skin is clean when it isn't. Day after day, this film clogs the pore openings, encouraging blackheads and blemishes. Day after day, it dulls the true freshness and beauty of your skin. But there is a safe, sure way to get rid of that stubborn film. And here it is. Smooth on my unique Lady Esther 4-purpose face cream and wipe it off. Immediately, and this is so important, apply Lady Esther cream again and wipe it off. This second cleaning with Lady Esther gets rid of that stubborn, clogging film. Now your skin is really clean. And instantly you see the difference, the clearer, fresher, younger look. You feel the new softness and smoothness. The very texture of my unique Lady Esther cream is different. So soft, so effective. That's one reason why my cream cleanses so thoroughly. If you want compliments tomorrow, remove that stubborn film tonight.
And now, Lady Esther presents the second act of Dragonwick, starring Teresa Wright, Vincent Price, and Glenn Langan.
Cousin Joanna was dead. I couldn't believe it. And yet, as we stood there in her room, gathered around her bed.
Surely you can do something for her, Doctor.
I'm afraid not. I can't understand it. It doesn't make sense. Mr. Van Ryn, are you sure she ate nothing that might have...
Dr. Turner, you prescribed what she should have for dinner. You told her that she could have that cake.
She insisted so. She'd have eaten it anyway.
Could someone else have given her something that...
No one was with her but myself.
Of course, the cake was soaked in rum. Acute indigestion. Yes, it's possible, but I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Is it also possible that she may have been more ill than you thought?
That's always a possibility, I'm afraid.
At least you admit it, if you'll excuse me.
Jeff, I'm sure he didn't mean that you were to blame.
Well, whether he meant it or not, it's shameful, isn't it? For a doctor not to know. If I thought there were any reason why he...
There couldn't have been. He was always so kind to her. Why, that Grinalda is his prized plant, and he brought it here just to make her happy.
Yes. She is smiling, isn't she? Well, you'd better get some sleep.
I only can. Good night. Yes?
There was a light under your door. May I talk with you?
Of course.
I can remember how that same chapel bell rang on the day that Johanna and I were married. Johanna laughed and said that it was a heavenly bell that would ring for us until death.
You were very happy together.
Yes. Until Katrine was born. Then we knew that Johanna could have no more children. That I was never to have a son. That there would be no more Van Ryns after me.
I wish I could help you. I want to so much.
Do you? Do you really? Miranda.
The bell has stopped. It must be nearly dawn.
Miranda, you've known as well as I that this moment would come. It was inevitable. We were inevitable.
Please.
Otherwise, out of all this world, why should I have called to you and no one else? And why should you have come to me? Tell me.
I can't. I don't know.
Yes, you do. You've known it for a long time now, just as I have known it.
You mustn't say that. It's so soon. Please.
You can't help yourself any more than I. Do you love me, Miranda? Tell me that you don't. Forgive me. I had to say it. There was no way for me not to. And no one but you to hear it. Good night, Miranda. Miranda, say you're not angry with me.
I'm not angry with you. The day after the funeral, I left for my home. I wanted to be away from him. I wanted to think. But I knew even then what the answer would be. And in May, Nicholas came for me, and we were married. Mistress of Dragonwick, it was more than I'd ever dared to dream. Now I live for only one thing more, to give Nicholas a son. And at last I did. I remember how happy I was when it was over. Nicholas came to me and stood by my bed. And I looked up and smiled and... Nicholas, at last you have a son.
I have no son. My son is dead.
Magda, he's still in the tower room?
Yes, Mrs. Van Ryn.
How long has it been this time?
More than a week, without a word or a sound. The last time it was 10 solid days with no...
Magda.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
I'm sure it isn't pleasant for him.
And what is it for you?
I don't know, Magda. I'm going up to find out.
Yes.
Nicholas?
Oh, it's you.
Yes, my dear.
This is an unlooked-for pleasure. I wasn't expecting you. Frankly, I had almost succeeded in forgetting you. Don't be frightened of me.
I'm not frightened.
No, I'm sure you're not. You have courage, Miranda. I like that about you.
Nicholas, what do you do up here?
What do? I live. I'm sure you're unable to understand that.
I want to understand if you'll help me.
Shall I? Shall I tell you what you want to know? Very well, brace yourself. Prepare to have your God-fearing, farm-bred morality shaken to its core. You see, I am what is vulgarly referred to as a drug addict.
Why?
What? No tearful reproaches, no attempts to save me, to regenerate me.
Why have you found this necessary?
Because I had to set free something within me. Something that ever since I can remember has been like a rock caught in my heart and my brain, pushing at me, choking me.
Why not put it in the simple way, Nicholas? You're just plain running away.
As simple as that.
I know you better than you think. You've always run away whenever you've come up against something unpleasant, something you couldn't change, like the rent laws.
Or the death of my son.
Our son.
Get out.
Nicholas, let me help you.
I don't need to be helped.
Help me, then. Please don't shut me out like this. Let me be unhappy with you and happy again. Let me be part of you. Let me love you and love me, too.
Get out.
I'm sorry, Nicholas. I had to try. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff.
Miranda?
Nicholas, you startled me.
Miranda, you've been spending so much time in your room, I thought perhaps this plant might make your retirement less unbearable.
Persian Grinalda, your favorite.
Your happiness is mine. But may I ask why you sit here by the garden window in the half-dark?
I was thinking.
And does the mere act of thinking always make you look so frightened? What were you thinking of?
Of Joanna.
Why?
I don't know.
Poor Joanna, sometimes I... Listen, do you hear that?
What?
Nothing. The wind in the garden.
There is no wind.
Yes, there is. No, out there, somewhere, something, a creaking board, perhaps. It isn't important. It stopped now.
But I didn't hear anything.
Neither did I.
Yes, you did. From the other room. The harpsichord. Azil.
Stop it.
Then Katrine did hear her that night, and you must have heard her when our little son...
Kitchen talk. Now you've reached your own level again.
I've never believed it, really, until now. Now I know
There. May I come in this way?
Dr. Jeff.
Mind if I drop in? I just happen to be passing by.
Passing by. With an army of farmers marching through my gardens?
Oh, their fight is all over now, Van Ryn, and you've lost. The governor signed the anti-rent law last night.
Jeff, why have you come here like this?
I've been doing some studying. I want to talk about flowers with the patroon.
Flowers?
I'd advise you to confine yourself to medicine, Doctor.
Well, strangely enough, I've learned they're related. Miranda, I'd advise you not to take that plant to your room.
I don't understand.
It doesn't matter. He does. Van Ryn, is it as pretty as a plant in your late wife's bedroom the night she died?
Doctor, you're letting the conversation become rather morbid.
I was never able to forget that plant. At the time, I thought it was very beautiful. I've found out since it was also very deadly. In fact, that's why I'm here.
Nicholas, what does he mean?
The granada is a glucoside, similar to digitalis, but far more poisonous.
No. I don't believe it.
It was convenient having a doctor on hand, even a bad doctor like myself. It was all so legitimate. She had a bad cold. She couldn't have tasted anything in the cake. It was soaked with rum, and it looked...
Nicholas, no! Put that gun down! Don't shoot! No!
I'm sorry, ma'am. It was either him or Dr. Jeff.
Nicholas.
Miranda. He was insane. A murderer.
But for him to die like this...
Wait. I think he's trying to talk.
Yes? What is it, Nicholas?
Those men. Tell them to take off their hats in the presence of the patrol.
Thank you, Glenn Langan, Vincent Price, and Teresa Wright for an absorbing performance. We hope you'll be with us again soon.
You can count on us, Mr. Bradley. For that matter, you can count on every actor and actress in Hollywood, because we all know the wonderful work being done by the Motion Picture Relief Fund and its Country House. And we know that work is made possible largely by this radio program. And now, Vincent Price has something to tell you.
Friends, don't forget to send your contribution to the March of Dimes. Join the fight to stamp out infantile paralysis. Remember, it's your fight. Infantile paralysis may attack your own family. Half your contribution goes for medical research. Half stays right in your own community for care and treatment of anyone who needs it. Send your contribution to your local March of Dimes.
Thank you, Vincent. And now, before we tell you about next week's show, here's a word from one of America's best-known beauty authorities, Lady Esther.
Thank you, Miss Wright. Ladies, many women write me and say, Lady Esther, one big reason I prefer your cream is that it never leaves my skin feeling greasy or sticky. Well, that's because the very texture of my Lady Esther cream is different, so soft, so effective. You see this difference in the jar, and you feel it as you use my cream. You notice how easily Lady Esther cream spreads, how easily and thoroughly it wipes off. My cream does not leave that messy, sticky, greasy feeling. Instead, it leaves your skin feeling so refreshed, wonderfully clean. My cream is really different because, you see, it's made by a special formula. There is no other cream like Lady Esther. Remember, too, my unique Lady Esther 4-purpose face cream does 4 of the things your skin needs most. Besides cleansing thoroughly, it softens your skin, helps nature refine your pores, and makes a perfect powder base. Lady Esther needs no help from any other cream. Use my unique cream faithfully at least once each day, but remember, always use 2 applications, one immediately following the other. That's the way to get rid of that stubborn film which hides the true beauty of your skin. That's the way to give your skin its best chance to build new loveliness.
Next week, the Lady Esther Screen Guild Players will present Swell Guy. It will star Ann Blythe and Joseph Cotton. Be sure to listen, will you? Dragonwyck was produced and directed for Lady Esther by Bill Lawrence, adapted by Harry Cronman, and was presented through the courtesy of 20th Century Fox, producers of Darrell F. Zanuck's The Razor's Edge. Vincent Price appeared through the courtesy of 20th Century Fox and will soon be seen in their picture, Moss Rose. Teresa Wright appeared through the courtesy of Samuel Goldwyn and is one of the stars in his production, The Best Years of Our Lives. Glenn Langan will soon be seen in the 20th Century Fox Technicolor production, The Home Stretch. Music on tonight's program was arranged and conducted by Wilbur Hatch. Tonight's Lady Esther Screen Guild play is being heard by our servicemen and women overseas through the worldwide shortwave and network facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. This is Truman Bradley speaking for Lady Esther. Thank you, and good night. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
That was the Screen Guild Theater with Dragonwyck starring Vincent Price, as originally heard January 20th, 1947. I'll be back with final thoughts in just a moment. Welcome back to Classic Radio Rewind. With the holidays now behind us and after the marathon-filled months on Old Time Radio USA, January stands unique as the only month without a marathon. Who knows? We might change that in the future. For now, mark your calendars for our next marathon in February, featuring a 2-day Valentine's event. Join us on February 13th and 14th for a couples marathon, followed by Jack Benny's birthday marathon. More details will come in future Classic Radio Rewind episodes. While we highlight Old Time Radio USA frequently due to its diverse monthly programming, we also proudly feature our other fantastic stations. First up is Suspense Radio USA, our 24/7 live stream station with all 936 known episodes from the Suspense series that aired between 1942 and 1962. So, don't miss out on this thrilling collection. Next is Crime Time Radio USA, a 24/7 live stream of all your favorite crime and detective shows. If you're a fan of the genre, this is the station you'll want to tune into. And finally, our newest edition, Nightmare Radio USA. As the name suggests, it's a 24/7 station dedicated to thriller and horror radio programming. If you're after spine-tingling excitement, Nightmare Radio USA has you covered. You can find all 4 of these stations on our website completely free with no sign-up required. Stick around for the closing seconds of this podcast to get our website details. You'll also discover numerous ways to listen, including our mobile app, so go check it out. With that, we wrap up our first edition of Classic Radio Rewind for 2025. Here's to an incredible year ahead. I hope you had a fantastic 2024 and that 2025 brings you even more joy. Join us next week for more treasures from the golden age of radio. Until then, for Classic Radio Rewind and the WOTR Radio Network, this is Barry Slinker saying goodbye for now.
Classic Radio Rewind is a production of the WOTR Radio Network. For more Classic Radio Rewind, and to listen to any of the WOTR Radio Network stations, go to www.wotrradionetwork.com.